Hello and welcome to Sunday Sermon with me, Graham Hughes, on Politics Social. It is Sunday the 28th of December 2025. Not long to go now, not long to go. Just holding off the inevitable, the end of this year. Before I get into it, I just want to say a big hello to everyone in the chat, including Sarah Davis, Samusu. We've also got Gallifreyan Wren and Pete's Music, You're an Infectinov. And we also have Pete's Music, and who else have we got in there? I think that's it. hello, everybody. It's a bit difficult to read people's names when it's an at and a long word, rather than what you'd think they would do, which would be to have your actual name, like what they used to do, which is easier to read out and easier to just scan. When you're trying to look at the camera, you're trying to look at the screen. You don't look at the screen. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah. It's all. So what we're going to talk about today is Russia, because what I'm particularly interested in is the fact that Russia is fucked. That's what I want to talk about this morning. I just want to talk about how absolutely insanely messed up Russia is. It calls itself a resurgent empire, an empire without any dominions. It claims global leadership when it's got a GDP on a par with Panama. It insists that sanctions have failed when the only thing keeping the Russian economy going is the war that it is waging on Ukraine, the war of aggression, the war that is going into its fourth year. It's going to be 4 years. 4 years since the invasion at the end of February 2022. It's going to be 4 years this February that this monster in the Kremlin, guy called Vladimir Putin, some low-level bureaucrat in the KGB, rose to power by promising a bunch of oligarchs a load of free shit, a bit like what Trump did in America. Yeah. So yeah, you got the fact that Russia boasts this industrial self-reliance. It claims military superiority to NATO. It says the war is going exactly as planned. Like I just said, we're nearly into the 5th year now of a 3-day incursion, a 3-day special military operation. Don't call it a war. It's definitely not a war. This is going to have gone on longer than World War One. And they're framing the invasion, or at least Putin is framing the invasion, as a historic mission. And Putin's constantly selling himself as a defender of traditional values. That's why horrible little turf bastards like that little Graham Linehan and J.K. Rowling and Sharon Davis and all that lot, all filing behind Putin, because he talks about traditional values, i.e. he's a turf. And also, Russia is claiming that it's winning. It's claiming that it's got the upper hand economically, militarily, culturally. Yeah, it's fighting the culture wars. And Russia is telling the world that it can't be isolated. We need Russia. What do we need from Russia? What do we buy off Russia? That's the question I have. What really important thing do we need to keep going? I mean, a few years ago, you might have been able to argue gas. Can't argue that anymore. We don't need their gas. We don't need their coal. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything from them. We don't need the toys they make, because they're probably full of lead paint. They'll fucking kill you. We don't need the cars they make. Do they make any cars? I don't even know if they do anymore. Was it the Lada? Was that the East German car? No, not the Lada. What was it called? Trabant. Yeah, go and get in your plastic car. Go get in your plastic cars, right, from East Germany, from the GDR, and then tell you what, just fuck off. I think you're just fuck off. Anyway, Miss Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Russia are using horses for transport of troops and donkeys for transport of supplies. War is going well. Not. Yeah, you're exactly right there, Paula. It is not going well in any shape or form. Should we get a goal? Should we get a goal going? I mean, it's Christmas. I'm gonna have to stop doing these goals soon because people will be like, Graham, you're always demanding 50p to put in the idiot. But you know, if Diz is out there, is Diz watching? Diz loves a bit of confetti, so we'll do that for her. Right, there you go. Oh no. Oh, sorry, I fucked that up. Wait. Shit. No, that is good. Yeah, that's good. Right, okay. Go. Okay, right. You can now start the process. If you're in the middle of the process, maybe start again. Otherwise, it won't register. I don't know. So yeah, make it a little bit. Oh, it was a little bit dull there. Just turning up the contrast a little bit. That's better, isn't it? Bit of brightness. Bit of brightness on this. Otherwise, overcast. It's overcast. That's why. Sunday morning. Now, Russia wants to present itself as the future of the world. We're all going to be like Russia in the future. And I'm here to say no. I'm here to say I don't fucking want to be Russia. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I don't want to be Russia. I don't want to be anything near Russia. I don't want to be anything like Russia. Because what going back to being Russian is like is basically taking our country back over 100 years. When people still lived in slums. I know that we have poverty in this country, but consider this: 20% of Russians don't have an indoor toilet. That they have to go into the backyard to take a shit. 20%, 1 in 5. Population of Russia, what is it? 120, is it? 120 million? Yeah. So that's over 25 million people in Russia have to shit in a pot and take it outside. That is, I mean, and then you've got the demographic collapse that they're facing. The population has been shrinking every year since 1994. The population is projected to drop to around 120 million within decades, and birth rates are too low to replace the losses. But I mean, this is a thing that's happening all over the world. This is happening in South Korea. This is happening in Japan. This is happening in the UK. This is happening in Scotland. However, we're not sending off 1 million young men to war to be injured or die. Russia is. The birth rate is too low to replace the people dying, and working age men are disappearing due to war, migration, people leaving, people getting the hell out of there before they're thrown onto the front lines. The tech and creative sectors are fleeing the country. The future labour force is shrinking rapidly. Demographic time bomb was already detonated years ago, and this is just making it worse. Putin made it so he gave prizes, he gave money to women who had 6 children or something, and no one, hardly anyone took him up on it. It's like, no, not interested. Sorry, no. Barely got enough food to feed ourselves, never mind 6 hungry mouths. And then you've got an entire generation that's being wiped out by this war. Life expectancy is 10 years below that of the rest of Europe. 10 years, the average life expectancy. That's how low it is. And it's going to be even lower now because of the young men dying in the war that they started for no fucking reason. You got entire regions of Russia which have been emptied. There's ghost towns, there's ghost cities in Russia. There's no youth, there's no hope, there's no opportunities. And the morale in the country is at an all-time low. The only thing just about holding it together is the rally round the flag effect that a war creates. But hopelessness is widespread amongst young men, and obviously they don't do much about mental health issues. I mean, we could do more, a lot more in this country. Just think about what it's like in a country where to even say out your face that it might not be a good idea to, die in a war, or send your kids off to die in the war is something that is frowned upon. You shouldn't say that. You definitely shouldn't say that. You've got alcoholism. I can say I've been to Russia. I can say I've been to Russia. I spent the night in Kaliningrad. It's not really Russia. It's an exclave of Russia sandwiched between Lithuania and Poland. It's not really Russia. It's not really Russia. It's just kind of Russia. But still, in my limited experience of Russia, and to be fair, I have spent a lot more time in the former Soviet republics, which are now independent countries, not just countries that were behind the Iron Curtain, like the Czech Republic, East Germany, Hungary, Slovakia. Not just that lot, but also Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, which were part of the USSR, along with Ukraine and Moldova, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, spent a couple of weeks in Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, spent a bit of time there, to Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Azerbaijan, Armenia, toured around the monasteries of Armenia, spent some time in Georgia. This was after the invasion of 2008 when Putin decided that he wanted to take vast swathes of land from the Ukrainian people. A third of their land was stolen from them, with near a skerrick, a nat pube of dissent from the international community at the time. It was like, all right, whatever. You're seeing alcoholism, which I've seen it, but apparently it's getting even worse. Fear is replacing community. The drug use amongst Russians is through the roof. And people privately mock the propaganda that they're fed by the Putinists and gobshites in the Kremlin. But the police state prevents any kind of public honesty. If you are in opposition to, like Navalny was to Putin, he will kill you. He tried to kill the Scrapples here in the UK, in Salisbury, and he managed to kill a British citizen, Dawn Sturgis, which he got away with. He managed to get his insurgents in eastern Ukraine to use a Russian rocket to blow up a Malaysian airline, MH17, with the death of 300 people on board, innocent civilians, blown out the sky by Putin's terroristic regime. But you can't say anything about that because he'll kill you. And, Martin, quick before the goal vanished again. Martin, thank you very much. No, I realise that probably not the best idea to make because we don't have that much of an audience in the mornings on a Sunday. Best not make it out of 10. Let's make it out of 5. It's a bit more doable. Thank you very much, Martin, for the super chat. That's very kind of you. You mean Christmas? Scrambled egg on toast. Ooh, that sounds good. Since 1984, Russia has had a minor population increase in 2008 only. The rest are decreases. Since 2022, it's sped up a lot. We don't know how much exactly because they stopped reporting the real numbers. Well, that's another thing. We don't know what the actual numbers are here because the state doesn't really collect it. And if they do, they keep it secret. We have an idea that up to 18 million people are living in absolute poverty in Russia. But like I say, they're disguised by statistical manipulation. I mean, you have relative poverty, you have absolute poverty, you have different levels of poverty. Obviously, someone in the UK who had to go and shit in the garden, that would be a level of poverty that we're not used to. Even people who are living, hand to mouth, they have a toilet inside whatever residence they're living in. For 1 in 5 households in Russia to be without an indoor toilet it's shocking, isn't it? It's such a backwards country. That it lives a life that you would expect to find in developing nations, and yet it regards itself as a superpower. It's not. Heating is unaffordable to a lot of people in Russia, so they just put blankets over themselves and freeze in the winter, and their winters are incredibly, incredibly cold. Abandoned houses are being torn apart for firewood to keep warm. Families are skipping meals to feed their in order to feed their children. Food insecurity is rising across regions. Salaries are too low to cover basic necessities, and the mad inflation they've been having has destroyed any kind of purchasing power. There are some people in Russia who are doing very well, but the gap between the haves and the have-nots has never been this big. Even in Soviet times, even when the Tsar was running around we're treating Russia as his own private fiefdom. Fiefdom. Yeah, and then you've got people are relying on their savings, but that's running out because this war is just going on and on. Pensioners being having to choose between medicine and food. Refugees, internally displaced people in Russia exist not from the war but from poverty. And you've got these visceral examples that you can dig up of children in St. Petersburg eating dry pasta to stay alive. There's homeless shelters which are overflowing and unsafe. You've got rural communities starving, people drinking themselves to death. And if you're working in an industrial town, you're earning barely $350 a month in a country that has, the cost of living is comparable to other Eastern European countries. It's not cheap to live in Russia. Villages are being stripped and abandoned. Single mothers are not getting any support at all. There's the maternity leave. Maternity support has just gone off the cliff in recent years. Elderly people are just dying alone in freezing apartments. When the lid is taken off all this, it's going to look so much worse than any of us imagined. But this is all being suppressed by the Russian media, by the Russian government. Like, you do not find out about this stuff because it's just people just buried in unmarked graves. And if you talk about the fact that your grandmother isn't with you anymore, they'll put you to death. The state will literally fucking murder you. This is what it's like living in Russia. Miss Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. The trouble is that Putin is now receiving the one thing a war leader needs: accurate information. He's not now receiving the one thing a war. The trouble is that Putin is not now receiving the one thing a war leader needs: accurate information. But he's never really got accurate information. His generals have lied to him the whole way through this, haven't they? That's why he's always so surprised, isn't he? He's always like so taken aback by the way that the war is going. That's why he keeps killing off his generals, or sending them off to the front line for Ukraine to kill. And people are selling belongings to buy medicine, and food queues are returning to provincial cities. The food, we had to queue up for 5 hours for half a loaf of fucking moldy bread. The GDP per capita in Russia is lower than nearly every single European nation. GDP is closer to, like I said, Grenada than it is per capita. It's closer to Grenada than it is to Germany. The quality of life is collapsing despite the vast resource wealth of Russia, and it's falling apart. And then we can talk about the war and how the war is falling apart. As Ms. Paula Thomas says, he's not getting accurate information. I mean, the advances have been measured in meters per day. Some professor with far too much time on his hands worked out that at a snail's pace, they would be going faster. Like a snail's pace would be halfway through Bolton by now, if it had started 4 years ago, whereas they are still inching land, which they keep losing as well. The Ukrainians let them win a little bit, and then they take it back, and they just make sure that fewer Ukrainians are dying than Russians or Russian-backed militia. Russian-backed mercenaries from other places around the world. But, the territorial gains that Russia has made in this war are insignificant compared with the losses. And since early 2024, less than 1% more of Ukraine has been taken. Less than 1%. And these human wave attacks have replaced strategy and led to catastrophic equipment losses. Like, all their tanks are gone. All they've done is become metal coffins for Russian soldiers trapped inside as they burn up. And so what Russia is relying on now more than ever is drone warfare. Now, drones are tricksy little bastards, but you've got to imagine that Russia is spending hundreds of millions of dollars each day throwing stuff at Ukraine. And Ukraine's like, oh, okay, we're not going to surrender. We're not going to give up. We're going to keep going. We are going to keep going. And yet, while people in his own country starve, Putin is happy to spend $200 million on bombs and missiles and drones to strike innocent people, not even military targets, but innocent people going about their daily lives in Kyiv. And the tanks have been destroyed faster than Russia can rebuild them. And that's another thing. They've lost so much stuff as a result of the ineptitude in the army. The training is inadequate. It's chaotic. They're getting people out of jail to murderers, rapists to come to Europe, come to Ukraine, and cause havoc and die. The officers are all corrupt, incompetent. A lot of them are absent. A lot of them are drunk most of the time. The casualties in this war are very much concentrated amongst minorities in Russia and also the poor in Russia. This is mobilized men used as cannon fodder. If you've got a bit of money, you've left. If you've got a bit of money, you've gone to live in another country to get away from this shit because you don't want to be called up to join the meat grinder. And the equipment losses we've seen in Russia are catastrophic and absolutely unsustainable. And it's not just tanks, it's not just missiles, it's not just all that shit, but also it's the fucking Black Sea Fleet, which has been comprehensively taken out. Some dickhead posted the other day on Facebook or whatever, or X probably, it's probably on X. It had a picture of like these 5 Russian ships going across the ocean, going across the Black Sea. And someone added the context that 4 of them have been destroyed by Ukraine. They were like, no one can stand up against Russia. Look at all these warships. Like, yeah, 4 of them aren't there anymore, mate. They're at the bottom of the fucking sea where they belong. And then we talk about the casualties. Russia has taken 1 million total casualties. Of that, a quarter have died. So 250,000 dead people as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is the death toll is higher for Russia than all of its post-World War II wars that it was involved in combined. And don't forget the failure in Afghanistan under the regime in the 1980s, which ended up being under the rule of Gorbachev, and the return to Russia of these soldiers absolutely demoralized and fucked up and spat upon back when they came back to their homes and towns. That was one of the factors, one of many factors, but one of the factors that led to the fall of the USSR, because they realized that they just weren't impervious. They weren't the Russian bear, the USSR bear that people assumed them to be. They just couldn't take out a country like Afghanistan, and that was one that wasn't being supported much by the West. I know we helped the Mujahideen a little bit, but it wasn't much. I mean, it wasn't like, the amount that we're giving to Ukraine by any stretch of the imagination. And Ukraine is quite a developed country, It has cities and trams and the internet and high-rise towers and beautiful old quarters of cities and stuff. I mean, it's a beautiful country. It genuinely is a beautiful country, and quite developed, and was knocking on the door to become part of the European Union, which it very well might do sooner rather than later, maybe by the 1st of January 2027. So you've got some major key differences there between Afghanistan and Ukraine. And the Russians think they can win in Ukraine. They've got another thing coming. Because even if they were successful, even if they were successful in their 3-day military operations to try and take over Kyiv and put in a puppet ruler, they wouldn't have. They can't. It's so difficult to rule over people. It really is. You need the consent of the people who are being ruled over, and it's hard enough to do that in a democracy where you've come into power by an election, right? Look at the shit Keir Starmer's getting at the moment, for example, right? It's hard enough to do that in a democracy. Trying to keep control over people who, in a country whose children you have murdered, whose women you have raped, whose cities you have decimated, razed to the ground, villages, towns, whose civilians you have tortured. When do you think the Ukrainian people are going to give up? When do you think they're going to go, that's enough now, and we'll let the Russians rule us for the rest of time? It's never going to happen. It didn't happen in Afghanistan after 20 years of the Allies being there. Britain, America, yeah, coalition of the willing. 20 years. Could we get the people of Afghanistan on side? No. They would rather have the Taliban. They would rather have the Taliban than some foreign invader coming to their country and fucking shit up. And actually, in the case of Afghanistan, the Allies, they did a lot of good. They built roads. They rebuilt mosques and temples that have been destroyed over the years. They poured a lot of development money into Afghanistan. Fat load of good it did. Fat load of good it did. Because the people of Afghanistan did not want those people ruling over them. They did not want those people in their country telling them what to do, installing puppet rulers. When do you think Ukraine's going to give up? It ain't. And then you've got the fact that the death toll is being hidden in Russia. Like, the Russian people don't really know about this. They don't know that mobilized men are being used as cannon fodder. They don't realize that families are being silenced with payments and pressure. Say anything and you'll go off to your gulags in Siberia. You're seeing generations erased from Russian society for some meters of mud in eastern Ukraine. And you have a look at the some of the leaked complaints from soldiers on Telegram channels, complaining. These soldiers, the morale in the military is not great at the moment by any stretch of the imagination. They complain about their pay being stolen by commanders, the food shortages, weapons shortages, ammo shortages, desertions are rising, the people taking themselves out, the number of people, doing that is rising as well. And there's men mutilating themselves to avoid being deployed, and there is a reluctance to return to the front if you get any leave. So they're trying to stop soldiers returning to Russia for any length of time, because they know that if they do go back to Russia, they're never coming back to the front line. They'll hide, they'll run away, they'll try and get out the country. And then you got these people who are obsessed with this idea that Russia has all these nuclear weapons. Because what's happened is, 20 years ago, they opened a little kids book, and it had the world at war or something, and it had a little diagram with little rockets for all of the nuclear weapons that America had and all the nuclear weapons that Russia had, or the USSR had, I should say. And Russia, USSR had more than America had more. It technically won the Cold War in terms of nuclear stockpiles, but it lost the Cold War in terms of being able to feed its own people. See, food more important than nuclear weapons that you can never use. So now it has this massive nuclear arsenal, but it is aging and decaying, and missile maintenance is which is dependent on the West, is banned. They're not allowed to get the maintenance that they need when they've got any Western tech in these missiles. And then you've got components that are irreplaceable under sanctions, and experts are warning that the reliability of these deadly weapons is just collapsing, because these nuclear weapons, they need to be maintained, and they're not maintaining it. A fact that often trot out is one of my favourite facts, is that Abraham Lincoln and Charles Darwin were born on the exact same day. The exact same day. Can you believe that? The 12th of February, 1809. Sorry, that's not the fact. The fact I like to trot out is that America spends more on maintaining its nuclear arsenal than Russia spends on its entire military. It's all its battleships, all of its planes, all of its bombs, all of everything, all of its missiles. You've got this deterrence, which is quite, probably unusable. It became unusable possibly in the late 90s, after a decade of not being looked after, and we've seen the way that the Russian military look after their gear. We've seen videos of soldiers, their guns falling apart and jamming, the tanks rusting apart. The trucks that they have that have got these tires that just literally fell apart when they started driving on them, because they were never maintained. The rubber was never maintained. They were just left in a warehouse for 20 years, and then they expect the rubber to be fine when they start driving on it again. Ms. Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. You don't need to go abroad to see how this works. When do you think my parents' generation would have up in World War II? When do you think my parents' generation would have given up in World War II? Well, yeah, exactly. When would Britain have just gone, oh yeah, it's all right to have these Germans telling us what to do? There'll be a point where it'll be like, no, fuck off. And you know, you're right, Paula, because it happened with the empires, with the British Empire, the Portuguese Empire, the Spanish Empire, the French Empire. There came a point where these countries said, fuck off. We don't want you here. The only times that I can think of when sort of the people in a country were happy to be ruled by a foreign nation were these weird cases where either there were so many people coming from another country, coming from the Netherlands or the UK or whatever, that it got to a point where they were the dominant numbers in that country. And so you got places like America, Canada, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. But even those countries, the native population are still not happy with the fact that these foreigners came from across the water and fuck shit up for them. Why would they ever be happy about that? And there's always going to be tension, always, because if the Aboriginals had the numbers, they would make sure that the fucking whitey here was nowhere near them. You know, why would you want these fucking dickheads coming from over the sea and bringing petrol and alcohol and all kinds of shit that your culture's not used to, stealing your children, etc. And then I just want to talk about something else as well. This kind of phenomenon that's happened over the last few years. Is these idiots from the West who have moved. They've moved to Russia on purpose, not by accident, on purpose. And you got some Americans and Australians and stuff fleeing their own countries because they're too woke. They're scared of all the gay people. They're scared about women with rainbow-coloured hair. They're scared of trans women. So they've decided to run away to go and live in one of the most oppressive, brutal regimes in the world. And the thing is, right, a lot of people seeking tax breaks and big, big pay packets go and live in Saudi Arabia. But here's the difference. When you go and live in Saudi Arabia as a Johnny foreigner, or an expat as they like to call themselves, you live in a gated community. You live away from everybody else in Saudi Arabia, okay? They have these communities, right? Whereas in Russia, they don't have that. You just throw it in with everybody else. And, these dickheads have been welcomed in by the Kremlin propaganda machine. And the families turn up and discover hell. Hell on earth, which is what Russia is. It's a horrible place. Why would you want to go there? Yeah, there was a story about a family, the Huffman family, was it? They moved to Russia with their children to protect their children against LGBTQ plus rights. Yeah, you heard that right. Because the gay people had too many rights in America, so they decided to move. And the husband volunteered for the Russian army. He expected to be doing welding work. Instead, he was sent to the front. Psych! The wife has said that he was thrown to the wolves, and the family have been left begging subscribers for donations to survive, and Russia has treated them as expendable. These are people that Russia has invited into its country to claim that it's winning some kind of war against the West, against the Western decadent ways, Western homosexuality. Yeah, how's that going for you? And then there's a Hare family as well, which I read about. They moved for the traditional values and the anti-LGBTQ plus laws. They lived in a freezing shack with livestock inside. That's, you got to really hate yourself, right? Because I mean, the dad of that family is definitely gay, isn't he? He definitely fantasizes. He definitely fantasizes about, other men. Of course he does. And like he hates himself so much. He pulled his family away from his temptation to go out and pick up in a gay bar. He's gone to a country where they're living inside a freezing shack with livestock inside. They had their nest egg of $50,000 stolen from them by somebody, and the police just shrugged. The police probably fucking stole it. There you go. How about living in a world where in a country where there's no law and order, where everything runs by bat, which is the word for backhanders, baksheesh, bribes. And then you got the kids are unable to attend school and they want to return to America. But they're trapped now. They made their decision. Fucking fuck around and find out. Yeah, indeed. I just want to say Russia can't win this war. Russia cannot win this war. It cannot replace its own people. People are dying. People are leaving. People aren't having kids. It can't replace its technology. It can't replace its trusted institutions. It can't replace the dead because people aren't having kids. It can't replace its own. It can't maintain its nuclear arsenal. It cannot regenerate its workforce. It can't outproduce the West. It cannot win this long war of attrition. It just cannot win this war. It can't win it because the people of Ukraine do not want to be ruled by Moscow anymore, because they were. A lot of people in Ukraine remember being ruled by Moscow and remember how difficult and horrible it was. That Russia cannot become strong, by devouring itself, and it cannot, it cannot defeat Ukraine, which is being supported by major economies. It might not be being supported by America anymore. It doesn't matter. Honestly, I know it sounds really, and it's horrible for the Ukrainian people to have to put up with this shit with that dickhead orange twat in the White House. But they will keep fighting. They will keep fighting. And Russia cannot escape the consequences of its own decisions. And you know what? It might not happen in 2026, They might not all fall apart then. They might not fall apart for another decade. But it will. It will. Because it's on fucking quicksand. It's like the Trump administration. It's on fucking quicksand. It can't maintain itself. It can't keep doing this indefinitely, propped up by a couple of $1 billion from here and there from tech entrepreneurs, tech billionaires. Putin has built a prison. He's called it a superpower. He's filled it with corpses and the poor and people who don't have a fucking toilet. He's told the world that it's paradise. It's a world. It's a place you can get away from gay people. Yay! Escape that pressure. That people feel when they're getting themselves off and they fantasize and think about people of their own gender. Yeah, get away from them. Get away from those bad thoughts. Run away from your naughty thoughts all the way to Mother Russia. Motherfucker Russia, more like. Because motherfucker Russia is going to fuck you up. So please, if you take anything away from this Sunday sermon today, it's the message that I want you to take it on board. Please don't move to Russia. Please don't move. No matter how much you might hate yourself for thinking those naughty thoughts, please don't go to Russia. And certainly don't take your family to Russia either. Not if you like having a toilet inside. Not if you like not dying. Not if you like not being sent to the front of a war where there's still trenches being built. My God. Anyway, did you hear that Russia is now having a barter economy because their currency is now so worthless? Yeah, Katrina Tan, their economy is absolutely on its knees. The only thing keeping it going is the war. The only thing keeping Putin going is the war. And this is what's canny about what Zelensky did this week. He went to Florida and he said, no, I'll give all these concessions. We'll do all these things. We just need Russia to agree. Because he knows, and we know, and anyone who's paying attention knows that Russia's never going to agree to any kind of peace deal. Because it can't. It can't have peace. No matter what. No matter if Ukraine says, I'll tell you what, you can have all the Donbass. You can keep the fucking Crimea if you want. Yeah, because they need the war to keep going. Putin needs the war to keep going for the next 20 years to keep him alive. As soon as that war ends, then he's out of here. He's done for. He's getting thrown out of a window at 40,000 feet. Saz, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. That is very, very kind of you. And we've got confetti, which is awesome. So thank you very much to everyone who has dropped in some super chats this morning. Because now we have confetti. Chris says, look at how Putin treated the families of the Kursk submariners. That should have been an immediate red flag to the rest of the world that Putin wanted to return to the Soviet era of doing things. Yeah, Kursk, this submarine, it was the jewel of the submarine fleet of Russia, and poorly maintained. I think it was it like a missile that they tried to fire a missile, but the hatch didn't open properly, so it blew up inside and just fucked everything, because nothing was properly maintained, and they had all this tech down there, and they had all these people down there, and they let them die. They let them die. If they had been really, really quick with the rescue mission, they might have pulled maybe a dozen people out of there if they were lucky, but because some of them did survive in the back of the ship, in the back of the submarine for a little while, but still, absolute negligence. And, Putin didn't give a fuck. Putin, because he doesn't care about his own people, never mind people from another country. And isn't it weird, these little twats who they're all the Brexiters, aren't they? And the Faragists and the Trumpists, they're all like, oh, I love Putin, he's so strong and manly. And you're like, really? Really? Go and live in Russia then. Go on, fuck off to Russia. Seriously, you traitorous bastards. They want to drag our countries back to this fucking 100 years ago, where people were still shitting in the bushes. I don't want that. Where there was literally a handful of people with money and everyone else had fuck all. And seriously, fuck all. Like, not even enough food to fucking eat. We sort of... I'm not saying we're spoilt in the rich, but our levels of poverty here in the UK, that would be fucking luxury in Russia right now. Even people having to, just about eke out any kind of survival in this country is miles better than what the poorest people have to put up with in Russia. And when they claim to be a superpower, I just gotta laugh. It's like, there was a country in Africa, it might have been Zaire, which is now the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they had like a space mission that they were going to do, and they had these people like dressed in spacesuits running around, and in the racist way that our news media works, it was always good for a good chuckle, like this. It was like the 80s or something, it was like, they're doing a moonshot in this country in Africa. Isn't it hilarious? And I mean, I hate to say it, but the way that the Russians run around at the moment, it reminds me a bit of them, of that lot in I think it was Zaire. You're dressing up as space people, and they've got to go into space, and you're like, you're not going into space, mate. I hate to break this to you, but you're not going into space. And these Russians go, we're going to be great again. We're going to be the best. We'll win the war. We'll get the Georgian soil. We'll get the Ukrainian land. We'll take it for ourselves, and then we'll be great again. You're not going to be great again, mate. Not in my lifetime, at least. America and Europe offered assistance when Kursk sank, but Putin refused any help. Yeah. I heard that when the Kursk went down, it was the Americans, I think, the American Navy who raised the alarm. They told the Russians through some back channels, because they didn't want the Russians to know that they had the ability to know that ship was there, because it was supposed to be like a stealth submarine. They knew they were there. I wish I was in space now, lol. They're going to be the very best, like no one ever was. Yes, Gallifreyan Ren, once they catch all of those pesky Pokemon. I overheard a conversation in a pub, and they were hoping for Russia to take over Britain, the Patriots. Yeah, but they never think that it's going to be them. They never think it's going to be their children being marched off to war, or their partner having to go and shit in a bucket. Do you know what I mean? They never think it's going to happen to them. it's always something that's going to happen to other people. You know, they'll be all right. They'll be all right. You know, no one's going to come and rob all their worldly goods, and then the police are going to turn a blind eye to it. You know, that's never going to happen to them. And this is what like these antisocial motherfuckers think. You know, we use the term antisocial a lot of the time wrongly. I think you use it to mean someone who just doesn't want to go out to parties. You could be an introvert. You're not anti-society, are you? You're not like, oh, I fucking hate the fact that we have an NHS. I hate the fact we have a police force so that if someone robs me telly, I can at least get it reported that me telly's been robbed. I hate having an insurance system where I can pay some insurance and if me telly gets robbed, I can get a new telly for half the price. You know, I hate all that. I hate the fact that we have schools. I hate hospitals. I hate roads. I hate sewers. I hate street lights. You know, fucking road signs, fucking traffic lights, stopping collisions from happening. I fucking hate that. The motorway network, get to fuck. Fucking railways, the things society have built, the things that other people have built that I enjoy every day. I hate all of those things. I want to live in a fucking squalid little hovel with animals in the room, and I want to shit in a bucket for the rest of my life. Like, who's saying this? Like, are they fucking mad? Are they taking leave of their senses? You got to wonder, haven't you? You got to why wonder. Why? She went away. But yeah, Bridget Bardot has kicked the bucket at the age of 91. Do you know what my granddad said just before he kicked the bucket? He said, hey kid, look how far I can kick this bucket. True story. Where's me squeaky tank? But no, seriously though, yeah, Bridget Bardot has unfortunately left us. She has shuffled off this mortal coil. But at the grand old age of 91, and she was fucking great. I love Bridget Bardot. She was a motherfucking icon, an absolute icon. Yes, it was the American sonar system that detected 2 explosions. Also, seismic monitors picked up 2 explosions. Yet the Russian Navy didn't pick anything up, says Chris C. Who knows more about the Kirks? I can't even say it. The disaster with the submarine than I can. Than I do. Sorry, he knows more than I do. But yeah, Katrina says, my Daily Mail reading friend keeps having a go at me for learning German because of World War II, but has got 0 problems with Farage, such cognitive dissonance. Farage, who married a German woman and whose kids speak German. So you want to say to your Farage's friend, well, you know, I'm just trying to be like one of Farage's kids, you know, because that's that. I mean, who did Farage want to win the war? It wasn't us. I'll tell you that now. Yeah. It was a torpedo that was leaking, and they didn't have the inner torpedo tube door secured when it exploded. Says Chris. I thought it was a torpedo. See, I know a little bit. Califane Renzi man's a squeaky tank. I'll have to think of another shit dad joke before before we go there. A guy carrying something and pulled it on me, so that I did the same. Took me a while to realise I pulled out my comb. Oh dear. R.I.P. Bridget Bardot. Yeah. Fun fact, this channel has more tanks than Russia. Yeah, that's very true. That is excellent. Yeah, but yeah, the situation in Russia, I want to be really clear, is fucking dire. Is absolutely dire. They can't sell their shit. They're having to the effects of the Ukrainian strikes. The Ukraine has struck an oil rig in the Caspian Sea. It's just thousands of miles from Ukraine. It's also hit critical infrastructure for the refinement of oil in Russia, which has made it so that Russia can't really export oil anymore, which it was relying on selling, you know, Russian oil at a knockdown price to places like India. Now it's having to keep oil for itself because of demand in the country itself. And obviously a war uses a lot of oil. And the stories of Russian soldiers not being able to fill up their vehicles in Ukraine to get to the front line or get back to the front, to get some supplies or do whatever. They have like a token system now, and they don't accept the tokens. They can't get any petrol or any diesel. Yeah, the Ukrainians really know what they're doing when it comes to absolutely battering Russia from the inside almost. And the thing is, um, if you look at what the way Ukraine is conducting this war, Ukraine's being a lot more strategic and actually thinking about the long term and what's going to fuck Russia up more than the Russians are. The Russians are just war of attrition, whereas the Ukrainians are a lot more calculating in their strikes and in these audacious strikes like the one this year where they released all these drones that just smashed up a lot of the military hardware, the planes and bombers and fighters of the Russian Air Force, and they did it with tankers that they got. Sorry, not tanks, trucks or lorries. They got these lorries, and they got Russians. They paid Russians to drive these lorries to the location, and then the top of the lorry opened up, and all of the drones swarmed out and went and took out their targets quite effectively. Amazing stuff. A couple of weeks ago, the Ukrainians took out a fucking submarine that was in the base that the Russians are now having to use on the Red Sea because they can't use Sebastopol anymore because it's too close to Ukraine, and Ukraine's just taking everything in Sebastopol out as much as it can. It's quite remarkable. Blue Badger says, I've got a fun number floated by a Russian talking head. He totted up the Russian recruitment, hid the number of soldiers and their SMO, and asked where the other 1,500,000 recruits then. What the fuck? Yeah, exactly. Talk about a snake eating its own tail. I've lived a rough life, says L. I could tell you something that will make your hair stand up. Hair gel is one. Oh, very good. Very good, Al. I love that. Chris C says, because of the threat that Putin might use nuclear, biological, chemical weapons, even though Moscow will be wiped from the maps if he did use those weapons. Yeah, but that's the thing. He might have chemical weapons he can use. He might have biological weapons. But the fact that he hasn't used any of this stuff, I think, is very telling. I think he knows that if he tried to do a big Novichok attack in a major city, dispersing it from the air or something, I'm guessing that he knows that the Allied powers will not stand for that. Trump will. Trump doesn't give a fuck about people dying of a horrific nerve toxin. But the rest of the world, I think, at that point will turn against Russia. As far as the nuclear weapons are concerned, I think they're scared to use them. I think it's a case of like trying to transport some leaky old sticks of dynamite, nitroglycerin across a jungle. You know, one there, you tap it too hard and it'll blow up in your face. I think that these missiles that they've got and these old rusting missile silos in Russia, like the planes can't take off because they've all been fucked or not been looked after. So they're not going to be bombing anyone with these nuclear bombs. So that just leaves these missiles, these hypersonic intercontinental ballistic missiles, which it's like, do they really have any left after all this time? Do they have the nuclear components? Have they not broken down by now? Do they not need to top them up? Do they not need to? So I got in my head this idea that you'll have a nuclear bomb that is sitting in a silo. And you know, it's got the hatch that needs to open up. The hatch isn't going to fucking open. It's just rusted shut through 30, 40 years of not ever being fucking open to see if it works. You know, it's, kind of, maybe it opens a little bit and then it gets stuck halfway. But the missile doesn't know that because it's using a computer from 1974, and the missile hits the top and just smashes up. And I don't think it will cause a nuclear explosion necessarily. It will cause an explosion though. Yeah, just lots of nuclear material all over the silo there, and not leaving much else. Not leaving much else. Watched the Magnificent Seven Deadly Sins film highlighting the sins. Yeah, I was amused at how many actors were Tory supporters like Bruce Forsyth didn't learn the moral of the film. A bomb has been found outside Trump Tower. Police say the public need not to be alarmed. They shoved it back inside. Very good. Do you know something I love? Right. Trump has changed the name of the Kennedy Center in Washington. Well, here's the thing, friends. It's not the Kennedy Center. It's the Kennedy Memorial Center. It is the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center. As in, this is a memorial to a dead motherfucker. Okay? Trump's put his name on it. It now says the Donald Trump and the, so it's got two the's in, which is wrong, but grammatically it's all over the place. They've used a slightly different font, which is always going to fucking piss me off. Do you know what I mean? You might as well just graffiti it on as far as I'm concerned. But it's now the Donald Trump and the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center, as in they're dead, as in, you know, yeah, that's the secret, isn't it? Keep thinking those thoughts. Keep thinking those positive thoughts, and it'll happen. Yeah, it'll happen. You can make it happen. You can make it happen. Anyway, we've got another super chat that's come in from Tim Ballon. Thank you very much. From the £5 super chat. Has anyone found the Polaroid picture mainly covered the top left of the drawer? Has anyone found the Polaroid picture mainly covered in the top left of the drawer? What? Anyone found the mainly covered in the... I don't know what you're talking about, Tim. Sorry, you'll have to explain that to me. Do I have a Polaroid picture here? Do you have a Polaroid? I don't think we've got any Polaroids. I'm looking around now. What's this Polaroid nonsense? What else have we got? Incredible Operation that. Personally, while I support calling Putin's bluff, I don't want to stress test that scenario. Yeah, but it's already been stress tested, Chris. We've had 4 years of this invasion. In fact, we've had 11 years since the invasion of Ukraine in terms of Crimea and also the Donbass region in the east of Ukraine. So, I mean, that I think it's stress tested enough. The fact that he didn't win in 3 days, the fact that he killed the leader of his Wagner group, you know, all this kind of stuff. Do you know the South Park writer bought the domain names Trump Kennedy Memorial Center a month or two ago? Oh my God, really? Oh, they saw that coming. It's like we're living in a fucking live action fucking South Park episode, aren't we? Thank you very much, Katrina, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Thanks for your support. It's not the physical photo that's missing. It's just the image in the public domain is not in the files as it's been deliberately removed. Oh, sorry. It's an Epstein pictures, an Epstein Polaroid. Sorry, I thought you were like on the bookcase and there's that's not a bookcase. What it drawers? Yeah. I thought you thought that plant there was a Polaroid. I don't know what I thought. Tim is referring to the photo of Epstein's desk. Okay. Don't get paranoia. We just got another super chat in from Tim Ballon. That's very kind of you. I'm going to be signing off in a couple of minutes, so this is great. The Trump files picture that was removed then returned. Oh, okay, excellent. Okay, well that's good. So thanks very much to Tim Ballon. Trump is as transparent as this statement, in my opinion, says L. Yeah, exactly, L. But also, L, let's face the facts that the people who redacted those files are fucking idiots, right? So what they did on a bunch of these fucking files, they highlighted them in black. You know, like you can highlight stuff using a Word or whatever, Acrobat, right? You can highlight stuff, right? So instead of redacting the words, they just highlighted them in black, right? Which would make sense if you were just printing out the document. If you were just printing out the document and you highlighted all of the lines that you didn't want people to see, that'd be cool. But they sent them out as PDFs. So as far as the computer's concerned, it can't see the highlighter. Doesn't matter. All you need to do is select the area, press Control-C, and then Control-V into another document, and all the words magically reappear. The people doing this are not working with a full deck. Do you know what I mean? They are ridiculous people. Ridiculously stupid, and I'm going to use that word, incompetent people. These people are incompetent. And that, my friends, is probably what fucks me off more than anything else that is happening right now in the world. It's just the level of incompetence. I find it hard to take. I find it hard to take. So I'm going to head off now. I'm going to try my best to do a show this evening, but I don't know if it's going to be possible. And if it is, it will be quite late. It will be sort of 10 o'clock, maybe even 11 o'clock tonight. We will see. But if we can do a show tonight, I will do a show. So please do me a massive, massive favor, please, since it's Christmas. Give this video a like. The more likes we get, the better. But also subscribe. If you're not subscribed, hit the bell notification icon. And you will subscribe and hit the bell notification icon. And then you will be given a notification if I'm going to go live, like I did today, a half hour early. Or if I'm going to do a show, which I'd love to do tonight. It's just that I've got a lot on, and you'll understand if I do a show tonight. You'll go, okay, Graham, I'll let you off. But yeah, I want to do a show. I want to do a roundup of 2025 at some point this week before New Year. So yeah, fingers crossed we can do that tonight. If not, I will absolutely definitely see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for Morning Brew, one of the last of the year. So that'd be worth joining me for. We'll talk about what's in the news, and we'll also have a look at the stupid newspapers and what they stupidly have to stupidly say. What the stupid people have to say. What the stupid people read. Take that, stupid people. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the super chats. You're amazing. You keep this channel doing what it does and allow me to say whatever the fuck I want. I'm one of the freest YouTubers out there because I don't have to censor myself in what I come out with, because I'm getting you're paying my wages, not the advertising on these episodes. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, that's it for today. And I'll see you very soon. And until then, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.